This episode of Dimed Out is brought to you by
Wire hangers! Wire hangers! Wire hangers!
Maybe if you don't want to talk, you could just listen.
Alright gang, what is happening? I'm Mal Foster and you are listening to the latest episode of your third favourite, underqualified yet overly dramatic podcast, Dimed Out. Okay, so in the last episode we dived into perfectionism and performance, and this week we're taking a different spin on the latter of those two. This week we're exploring vampires, COVID, and my return to acting for the first time in about 2 decades. So on that note, let's crack on with it. It starts with a St. Patrick's Day murder mystery improv dinner experience thing. So, at the minute, I'm outside of Goodwill, and by that I don't mean on like a deeper level, on a more soulful level. Sorry, there's just dogs barking like mad. Like someone's just tossed a big slab of sirloin steak over the fence. I don't know what it is, but they're just absolutely going off. Yeah, when I say I'm outside of Goodwill, I don't mean in a deeper, more spiritual, more intrinsical sense. You know, I'm not outside the concept of decency and humanitarianism. I mean, I'm outside the charity shop. It's a fairly big one. Not the biggest I've seen, but it's still fairly big. I don't even know what that means. The reason I'm there is because I have somehow managed to get myself roped into doing an improv murder mystery. Yeah, that was not on my 2023 bingo card. A St. Patrick's Day themed murder mystery dinner thing as well, because it is St. Patrick's Day coming up this Friday. I just want to state here that it wasn't an improv at all. There was no making shit up out of thin air, or there wasn't supposed to be. The whole thing did have a defined story, and I had a character whose name was Seamus Flaherty, and for immersion and for funsies, I had a crack at an accent. Yeah. I was aiming for Ted Hastings rather than Ted Crilly, but who knows? The thing is, it's gonna be really difficult to maintain that for any amount of time, and I'm already going off the boil.
How do I act so well? What I do is I pretend to be the person I'm portraying in the film or play. Yeah.
Yeah, maintaining an accent that isn't mine for any amount of time. I can do a sentence or two, but like a full dialogue, yeah, I honestly don't know how that's gonna hold up, if it is in fact gonna hold up. I also, you know, I don't want to do like a ridiculous like, oh hello, it's Lucky Charms style over the top caricature type bollocks. I don't want to be doing that. I want to kind of, I don't know, make it fucking respectable. Anyway, I got my character. I'll go through it in a little bit, but I was also prompted to go and get something green, or to wear something green. That was the prompt. And the thing is, I don't have anything outside of a hoodie, which is green. And with it being a murder mystery, it takes place at a wake, and I am the father. No, wait a minute. It's my father that's dead. I'm the son of the dead man that we're at the wake for. Again, I'll go through it in proper when I've got it up to read, but as far as I can remember, I'm the grieving son of a dead man, and we're at a wake, and so a green hoodie, not exactly appropriate attire. So I've had to come to Goodwill and get some stuff. I say some stuff. I have 2 options. I have 2 shirts. That's it. Just 2 green shirts. One is just like green, and the other is more subdued sort of green plaid short sleeve shirt, which itself might not be appropriate for a wake. The reason I've ended getting myself roped into this is because my co-worker at the radio station, she has her own theatre, and she asked me a week ago, do I know anybody that can do a reasonably decent Irish accent? And I could have let it go, and maybe I should have let it go, I don't know, we'll see, only time will tell on that one. But I told her that I could do reasonably decent, and she basically just insisted after hearing it. Although I don't really think that was the qualifier, I just think she needs somebody to do it. But I don't know, maybe I'm selling myself short. You know, it's weird because getting back into theatre, and even the theatre that she runs, was something that I was looking at the start of the year, to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone, to do something I haven't done for a very long time. 19 years. Yeah, the last time I did any live drama performance was when I was 19, studying performing arts. So, yeah, after almost 2 decades, I took back to the stage, as it were. And, yeah, I don't know if you want to call it fate, determinism, just sheer luck, sod's law, Murphy's Law, maybe, if you want to be on brand with this, if you want to be sort of keeping the theme. Whatever it is, it just seems to have kind of happened that the person whose theatre I was looking at, possibly going to an audition for, is somebody I now work with. So, yeah. So who knows, maybe this is the first of many things. It would be the first of a few things so far, but we'll get back to those in just a bit. For the time being, let's get back into the St. Patrick's Day murder mystery improv, not really an improv whatsoever, dinner experience extravaganza thing. Here is a quick rundown of my character. Seamus Flaherty, son of the deceased man at the centre of the murder mystery. I can't remember his father's name now, it doesn't matter. All that matters is he's dead. And that I, or rather Seamus, having difficulty separating myself from the character, went full method, went full Daniel Day-Lewis for Seamus Flaherty. Seamus, son of a man who owned a plant and tree nursery that was 100 years old. The whole reason for the gathering, for the dinner that people were having with their ticket, was to celebrate the Flaherty's plant nursery's 100th anniversary. It is a business, a legacy, a family heritage that has been passed down from father to son for generations. And with Seamus's dad now, brown bread, it was kind of expected that Seamus would be the recipient of the business, that he would inherit his family's legacy. So already my character sounds super sus. There were other characters, including Seamus's father's wife, also known as Seamus's mother-in-law, Seamus's sister, his father's cousin, who is talking to imaginary leprechauns and, gibbering on about pots of gold. And that right there gives you an idea of the tone of the piece. Not a serious piece, not a Beckett play by any means. It was real silly, real goofy, St. Patrick's Day to the max. All green everything, shamrocks here, there and everywhere, kiss my Blarney Stone, stereotypical nonsense. But for the first performance that I've done, the first bit of drama that I've done in 19 years, I actually kind of enjoyed the silliness and the goofiness of it. So, yeah, that's like the sort of long and short of it. I played a character who's looking to inherit a nursery. His father's died under suspicious circumstances. We've all gathered for this 100-year anniversary, but since he's dead, it's now awake. And rather than kind of get on stage and quiz each other and improv and riff and ask questions and what have you, and basically play an interactive game of Cluedo, which is how I thought it was going to go, we then took the information that we had about our characters, the very lengthy essay of detailed information we were given. I received this character sheet, and there's so much in there about your character, your relationships with other people, what you were doing the whole day before your father's death. So much stuff. And I'm like, how am I meant to retain all of this? What am I actually meant to retain? So you've got all this information about you, your character, your backstory, your relationships, your whereabouts for the last 24 hours. You don't have any idea if you've done it yourself. And you really don't know much about other characters either. So, on one hand, it was really quite detailed and also quite vague, but nonetheless, you have the information you have, and you are sent out after doing an introductory speech. Everybody does a little speech with it being awake, and then, once we're all done, we're off mingling around all the different tables. Each table gets to ask you 2 questions. You have to answer as truthfully as you can based on the information you've been given and that you can, hopefully retain. Otherwise, you kind of just have to, I guess, think on your feet. And I may have made some stuff up, which I don't know if that's a detriment to somebody's guessing game. It definitely is. You're not supposed to make shit up. I know. I know that now. I didn't then. I most definitely was told. It just went out of my head, which is, not surprising. If you were at that St. Patrick's Day murder mystery improv, not really an improv dinner experience extravaganza thing, and you didn't correctly guess who the killer was based on any misinformation I might have slipped you, then yeah, sorry about that. So you work your way around the tables, you get asked 2 questions. Once you've completed that, there's a little break. Then I think dessert is served, and then more information's given out. Information to which we weren't privy to, including, where Seamus falls in the will. Spoilers, he didn't inherit the nursery. I didn't know this until somebody asked me how I felt about it, about not being included in the will, and I didn't have a Scooby-Doo about that. The first time I knew about that was when somebody on their table handed me a sheet of paper which told me. So kind of difficult to keep the ruse intact, kind of difficult to stay in character. But ultimately it was fun, regardless of the sort of mix of mass information and vagueness. It was genuinely quite fun to just kind of play silly and kind of interact with people. And in regards to my social anxiety, I actually thought I would really be quite sort of riddled with nerves. And, especially having not done anything like this for almost 2 decades, I thought I'm going to get there and I'm just going to be like, oh shit, I'm just going to absolutely just freeze. I'm going to choke. But I didn't. I did quite well. In fact, I would say, all modesty aside, I was probably one of the better performers of the night. And that right there is where ego kind of comes into play. The 2 sides of me clashing, my constant belittling of myself, my self-destructive tendencies and anxiety all kind of bubbling under the surface, ready to go at a moment's notice, and then the part of me which thinks I'm really good at certain things coming in to sort of battle. Yeah, an interesting dichotomy is my brain.
I'd like to start by saying to all of you,
The Irish listeners listening, I really do hope I haven't offended.
my dad was a man of conviction in intense beliefs. His regular visits back to the homeland gave him so much joy and further cemented the bond back to the old country. I've been loyal to my father for many years, and I know that he took little notice of that small tale I had yesterday. Never imagined that it was my father. And I'm certain that in his will, he's left me the nursery, and I will proudly assume ownership of the business which we will plan to celebrate 100 years of. Handed down to his father, handed down to me. I will make my father proud of me, because I believe he can see us now, even now. So let me propose a toast. Patrick Flaherty.
I was acting.
I think the accent was alright, actually. Yeah, I think I did alright. In the year that has passed since the St. Patrick's Day murder mystery dinner experience thing, I've done another 2 of them. I've played someone, I'm not sure where he was from exactly. Somewhere in the Eastern Bloc, I think. So I went full ham with the accent on that one. He was European mobile phone entrepreneur. Great data plans, best coverage in Budapest. Terrible, terrible stereotypically Russian accent, but it was, again, just silliness. Whoever that guy was, he also murdered his cousin. Spoilers. His cousin was a world-famous magician, and to add another level of oddness to all of this, I also played the magician in the opening act. So, essentially, unbeknownst to me at the time, I murdered myself and then answered questions about it. In the other murder mystery dinner experience thing that I've done, I have played a snooty wine critic, a horrible man. He didn't murder anyone, but he was an absolute pompous asshole. And out of all three of them that I've done, hands down, the most fun to do. Yes, you don't know anything about wine, do you? Quite clearly. I can tell by what you've ordered. Yes. Don't you know who I am? All that sort of stuff. So much fun to do, just being an obnoxious douche. Outside of these one-night events, I did in 2023, and I mentioned the year here purposely because by the time I'm finally finished piecing these podcast episodes together, I don't know what year it will be. Perhaps by the time this season finally airs, singularity will have happened. AI will be fully sentient, and its insatiable appetite for input will have eventually led it to consume this podcast.
Check it out! Major input! Frederick, wait here. I'll be right back after these words.
This podcast
was sponsored by
Pizza Nuggets.
No way.
Are you craving something cheesy and new? We've got the perfect snack for you. Pizza Nuggets, they're the bomb. Chicken and pizza, all in one.
By the time this season finally airs, singularity will have happened. AI will be fully sentient, and its insatiable appetite for input will have eventually led it to consume this podcast, which in turn would dumb down its level of intelligence tenfold. But it would also give humans a fighting chance against our digital overlords, so in a way I'm doing the world a service.
Pizza Nuggets.
I'm the only hope you have.
Anyway, I digress. Back in 2023, I auditioned for and got a part in a proper play, a comedic play, a spin-off sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula. That part was that of a doctor. I say a doctor because I don't think he even had a name. I think he was just known as Doctor. A doctor who pronounces Van Helsing dead after Van Helsing chases a kitten into the street and gets crushed by a horse and cart. Spoilers. After dying, Van Helsing has the ability to travel through time as a ghost, in which he does to stop Dracula. Yeah.
I'm a vampire. Kill me. Kill me.
The part of Doctor was a small one, which I had personally requested, as I had and still do have a number of plates of my own to spin. Even with a small part, I found the process of learning lines, attending rehearsals, etc. could be, and in some instances really was, a time suck for me. An aggravating clash with the projects I'm trying to complete for myself. Your third favourite, underqualified yet overly dramatic podcast being one of them. When I'm at rehearsal, I'm done, I'm out, and then I'm waiting about for God knows how long, doing nothing. Downtime, so much downtime this last week with rehearsals for this thing, and it's nice and whatnot to hang out with other people in the play, but I am just bleeding time. As a doctor, I had one scene. It was the first scene, and I had about 3 minutes-ish of stage time before I headed backstage, where I had to stay there in costume for close to 2.5 hours before curtain call. I won't lie, I did find this aggravating, but I did request a small part, and a small part is what I got, whether I was in the first scene or slap bang in the middle. I would have still had to wait for nearly 2.5 hours in costume, which as a sidebar was great. Not the waiting part, I mean the costume. I had pants that were, I don't even know how to describe them other than 19th century doctorial brown. Kind of like an old-timey tweed, but not tweed. Anyway, I had pants with a matching jacket and a vest. I had a pocket watch and a dicky bow tie to truly sell the character of a holier-than-thou smarmy pompous asshole, which again was fun to play.
but now I'm starting to feel like I'm being typecast. The costume was great, but outside of 2 dress rehearsals, I would only get to wear it once, as misfortune struck.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to story time.
Now, you see actors and they're...
Now, I could give a long drawn-out, suitably dramatic retelling of what happened here, but honestly, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. On opening night, or rather, after opening night, I tested positive for COVID. My wife had been feeling unwell for a few days before opening night, and to err on the side of caution, both of us tested multiple times, only for each test to come back negative. Still, despite this, she decided to give the opening weekend a miss, and I kept a safe distance from her, just in case. During the afternoon of opening night, I felt tired, but I had no other symptoms whatsoever, and with a number of negative tests to my name, I put the tiredness down to work, rehearsals, and just my sharp mentality for getting my own projects done. So, opening night happens, the curtain goes up, prologue, opening scene, I get myself on stage and get my 3 minutes of wonder done, I head backstage, everything's fine, still tired but no other symptoms. And then, it happens. 15 to 20 minutes later, my wife texts me and tells me she's tested again, only this time, it's positive. I'm then hit with a huge wave of concern, first for her well-being, and then a second wave of concern crashes into me for everybody else's well-being. I mean, if she's positive, am I? Spoilers, I was. But I didn't know that at the time. So I'm not taking any chances. I hide myself in the furthest corner in the backstage area, but it's a small theatre with a small backstage area. And I've already been around everyone, especially poor Amanda, who did my makeup. Yeah. Oh, I felt awful. I just felt awful knowing that. But because I have no way of knowing, and I figure I can't just huff it and flee the scene, I stuffed myself in the corner, where with a sense of anxiety that is going through the roof, for the next 2 and a bit hours I try to make myself as deliberately unapproachable as possible. So I'm preoccupied with my phone, I'm giving short answers to questions, if any, truly embodying the traits of my character, Doctor. A pompous, holier-than-thou asshole, but it's done to try and keep people away from possible infection. So truly, I guess I was going full method without even meaning to. I laugh because I have to now, because I was not laughing at the time. It was hateful. Hateful. It's the longest 2 and a bit hours I have maybe possibly ever experienced. I didn't want to appear like a dickhead, but I had to minimalise the possibility of anybody getting sick. Granted, in hindsight, which is always the most wonderful way to look at anything, I should have just left as soon as I got the news from my wife, and I should have texted the theatre manager. But I didn't. And I stayed, and I felt lousy in every possible way. Lousy with anxiety, lousy with a crippling sense of guilt, and lousy in a physical sense. At this point in time, I wasn't just feeling tired, I was feeling fatigued and sweaty. And truthfully, I just put it down, maybe naively, to high levels of anxiety and nothing else. Because I had had no symptoms myself, and I had avoided my wife for a few days pretty much beforehand. But it was beginning to differ. I was beginning to feel off, for lack of a better term. Anyway, curtain call comes. I take to the stage and I keep as far away as possible from everyone, making me look more like a bigger dickhead than before. I take a reluctant bow and then a dash backstage. I get changed as quick as possible and then bolt out the back door. Driving away from the theatre, I begin to feel unsteady, and now I'm actively hot. It's not just clammy and sweaty, it's just actively hot, like I'm beginning to boil up. I am just desperate to get back home. When I do get back home, I start to feel wobbly, unsteady, and I lose my balance, almost face planting into a piece of furniture in the process. So naturally, my wife, concerned, takes my temperature and it's way high. So we go to the hospital because I think it had peaked over 100 degrees at that point. And we drive up to the emergency room, and it's a Saturday night, and we ask how much it's going to cost, and it's a lot. So we're just like, no, we're just going to go home, take some meds, take my test, take lots of water, and rest, and cold compress, bring my temperature down, and then, yeah. Outside of feeling shit in a general physical sense, I am feeling also really shit for the cast members and crew. I'm also feeling shit in the sense that once everything has calmed down and my temperature has dropped, I have the realization that this means for this performance, even though it's a small part, I am one and done. The shit feeling regarding the latter comes from two places, essentially. The first is that I have left the play in a bit of a predicament. Granted, my part is small. I have, as I mentioned, about 3-ish minutes of stage time to fill, but they do have to find a replacement because I am out. Thankfully, they do find a replacement, but still, it's the people-pleasing, I don't like letting people down part of me that's doing a proper number on my noodle at this point. So I, over the course of that 24 hours, went through the mangle in a variety of ways. The other place that I'm coming from with that shit feeling regarding my very limited performance is that of personal disappointment. Despite the play not being my particular cup of coffee, as it were, and despite the aggravation of learning lines, attending rehearsals, all of that leaving me in a place where I'm
bleeding time.
I've still put the time and the effort into this time travel adventure of vampire and ghosts, and now it's all been for naught. Well, maybe not for naught, but not for very much. I had the experience of doing it and working with some very nice and talented folk, but I really didn't have many fruits harvested from my labour. And so, although, the prospect of 3 minutes on stage and then 2 and a bit hours backstage wasn't great, it was, I suppose, almost equally aggravating to know that I had put the time and effort into it to just be done after one. It was a bit of a struggle, a bit of a back and forth kind of processing that. I would remain positive for COVID for close to 2 weeks after that first test initially popped positive, and yeah, 2 weeks where truly my only symptom was super fatigue. Which now, given certain things that have transpired, certain things that we will get into in a future episode, I promise, now I find myself wondering how much of that super fatigue really was COVID. But regardless, that was truly my only symptom. Sleepiness, super fatigue. And every time I tested, it was positive. For 2 weeks, I accumulated so many tests because I felt like there is nothing else going on here. I just feel tired, and then when that started to pass and I felt more normal, as it were, more rounded, more centered, I tested and I still came up positive. For like 2 solid weeks, it became a bit of a running joke where we started collecting all of the positive tests, and there was a lot of them. But during that 2 weeks of COVID, I was forced to do something that I am scared of doing, something that I don't allow myself to do, something that for a while I didn't think I could do. In those 2 weeks, I had to stop. Shark mentality had to cease. The super fatigue that I felt in that 2-week period meant that I had no energy, or truthfully even the will to spin any of my numerous creative plays. I didn't want to do anything other than sleep or rest, so that's what I did. I slept and I rested, and I reflected. I sat with the time that had been thrust upon me. I felt sorry for myself, sorry in the sense that I did only get one performance, but I also reconcile that this handbrake stop in my life was probably, the exact thing that I needed. God knows, I was not about to take 2 weeks off on my own accord. And it's perhaps strange to say, But getting a case of COVID, which only rendered me super tired, was probably the best thing that could have happened to me at that point. Again, hindsight, absolutely golden. Thankfully, to my knowledge, nobody else in the cast or crew came down with COVID, so that was a huge relief and released a large chunk of instinctive guilt. Looking back at this experience, in some instances, it has put me off acting again. For a while, at least, until I know that I can commit the time, energy, and focus needed. And it's made me want to be more selective with what it is that I want to go for if I'm going to act again. The whole COVID debacle was a kind of harsh realization that shark mentality can be just as much, if not more, of a detriment than a benefit. And that there really is only so many things that I can do and give so much energy towards. That's a learning curve that I'm still on. Because, once I was fine and dandy back to normal, I was doing it again. And it's not until fairly recently where I've had to stop again for medical reasons, again, which I promise we will get into at some point, that I've stopped. And so I don't know, take it maybe as I keep getting signs to stop and find balance and reflect and take time to separate myself from being productive. I don't know. If you believe in higher powers and all of that jazz, then yeah, maybe it is that. Maybe it is just consequences to my own actions. I don't know, but I am trying to find the time to stop without being forced to stop. Trying to do it on my own accord. On the topic of giving time and energy, although I did only get one performance in, of which there is no footage from opening night, the director did record, or somebody on the director's behalf, it wasn't the director himself, somebody did record a couple of rehearsals, so I'm going to use that footage to end this episode with a condensed 90-second version of my shining moment, of my return to the stage, or what my return to the stage might have looked like had I not become ill. Yeah, it's a condensed 90-second version of my shining moment without context and complete with flubbed lines.
I beg your pardon, sir. What do you mean, check again? I'm a graduate of the University of Edinburgh. If I say the man is dead, he is indeed dead. Give me a moment. Write out the death certificate. Cause of death. Yes, that would be extreme trauma to the head and chest due to accidental trampling by horse and carriage. Happens all the time. Wait a minute, gentlemen. Would you kind sirs please mind taking the body to the nearest mortuary? I believe you'll find Bailey's mortuary is on James's Street. They do a very fine job indeed. I'll just leave the death certificate here. I see no need for an inquest. It was clearly an accident. There is a small matter of my fee, though. Let's see. House call at 8:30. No surgery, no bandages, no injections. Just a dead Dutchman. 10 shillings all to cover it. Thank you very much. I suggest you try to relax. Have yourself a cup of tea. Try not to dwell on it. In fact, here, take these. These should help you relax. Good evening.
I pretend to be the person I'm portraying in the film or play.
And on that note, as always, thank you for listening. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and until next time, break a leg.
Pizza nuggets.
No way.
Are you craving something cheesy and new? We've got the perfect snack for you. Pizza nuggets, they're the bomb. Chicken and pizza, all in one.
roll.